Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I am the lead learner at the SCEA, Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and a great break, some time to spend with your family and your friends. Get a lot of food, good food, and just enjoy that time away from school and to sort of reset here. Great time of year for everybody. And just got to say, go Gamecocks. Sorry, I've got to say it. It's been, since 2013 that I can say that at the week after the Clemson game. So I'm very, very excited about that. I hope you enjoyed that game as much as I did. And if not, well, I guess you've got next year. Last time we had a live stream, we brought on Dr. Jennifer Garrett, and she is the coordinator of program research, of research and program evaluation at CERRA. She is the author of the Educator Supply and Demand Report. And of course, we saw that there were a record number of educator vacancies and a record number of educator departures over the past year. And I also thought it was important. I think it's important not only to talk about problems, but to talk about solutions to problems. And one of the solutions to our teacher retention problem is an effective mentoring and induction program. And so I've invited Dr. Suzanne Koty to come on, and she's also on CERRA staff. She's the director of service programs at CERRA, including mentoring and induction programs. I invited her on tonight to talk about the importance of mentoring, because we know that an effective mentoring program can help us keep teachers. We lose a lot of teachers in those first 5 years, and it's important that those beginning teachers get the kind of support that they need. And CERRA has been instrumental in creating the mentoring and induction program here for the state of South Carolina in conjunction with the State Department and some other partners. And so I thought I'd bring on the expert on this subject tonight, and let's bring her on without further ado, Dr. Suzanne Koty. How are you doing tonight, Suzanne?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Todd?
I'm good. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. I'm going to join you in congratulating the Gamecocks. A long time that we have waited to be able to say that, so I think we get to just enjoy that moment while it's here. So they certainly played a fantastic game, and it really topped off the holiday week.
Yeah, it was a great game. I'm glad you.
And kudos to Clemson, because it was a well-fought game, and that could have gone either way. So it was a great rivalry game.
I mean, I haven't been able to do any trash talking since the Obama administration. So, I mean, Clemson's had such a great run. It's great for the Gamecocks finally to have some stuff to celebrate. Let's talk about mentoring in general. Like you heard me preface this and talk about this obvious issue that we're having with teacher recruitment and retention. Talk about how mentoring is such an important part of solving that problem.
Yeah, well, I want to start by saying that when we think about retaining teachers, it's not just the mentor's job. I mean, it really is everyone in that building's job when we think about anywhere where you work. I mean, whether it's a school or a restaurant or any type of employer, when you are dropped into a building in an already established culture, that culture makes or breaks you. And so everyone has a hand to play in helping to retain teachers. But when we think about early service teachers, we know that first 5 years is really, that's do or die. They're either going to make it or they're not. And we know that if we can get them to that 5-year mark, then we are more likely to retain them long term. So we have to be intentional about what we do to support teachers when they come into the field, because no matter how they got there, it doesn't matter if it's somebody who went to a traditional college prep program or they came through one of the alternative programs, there is nothing like real teaching. And so you can simulate and learn about teaching all you want, but when you're actually in the classroom and you're that adult in the room, that's just a huge responsibility. And, learning to navigate those waters can be difficult. And so they need everyone on board to help them. And so where mentors come in, mentors are individuals, veteran teachers who have gone through formal mentor training through a conjunction with the State Department and with us at CERRA. We also have trainers out in districts. So a lot of times that training takes place in their own districts. They have gone through the training and they have agreed to support a beginning teacher. And when I say beginning teacher, I'm using that term to encompass anybody who needs mentors. It could be a veteran teacher who's going through some type of change and needs some additional support. It could be a student intern, but I'll use the term beginning teachers just for simplification. But that mentor is a trained individual who comes in for the purpose of supporting that teacher. And there's a formal process involved. It's not just being their friend or showing them how to do things. It's really going through a process with them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think about, you know, a generation ago, the mentoring meant, you know, we're going to get a veteran teacher and we're going to say, hey, we're going to assign you to them. And then it's like a buddy system and we're not going to like, how are you doing? I'm okay. And then you just like, there was no like formal process. And what I love is how CERRA has been involved with this for, I think, nearly 2 decades, really leading the way in South Carolina. And I know a few years ago, there was a major overhaul of the mentor training. And, you know, I know you were a part of that team, Dr. Jenna Hallman. I helped out with some of the design work. And then you got a whole team of people together to really help give input on what that should look like, what that training should include. And that developed into the current South Carolina mentor training. So do you want to talk a little bit about like what that training involves and what kind of a mentor learns to become effective?
Sure. So let's start with just who was involved. And yes, it was us at CERRA. It was a conjunction with the State Department. But most importantly, you talked about that team of people who came together. Those were teachers. Those were people who were out in the field, who had supported beginning teachers, who maybe had been through the old mentor training system, but they had firsthand knowledge of what was happening in schools. And so they were able to really inform that process. And I think that was a critical step in making sure that we had the best system in place that we could. And we like to say that we live in a state of revision. We are constantly looking at what we're doing and getting feedback from stakeholders out there. And so nothing's ever solidified. We are constantly revising our materials and changing things to meet the needs of all of the teachers out there and the school districts out there. So when somebody comes through the training, it is a 2-day training. And it's initial South Carolina mentor training is what it's called. And they come through the training and they learn about, first of all, the beginning teacher needs. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we teach them about the different types of needs that a beginning teacher might have, and then the role that a mentor will play to meet those needs. We walk them through the importance of mentoring, really digging into the data about retention. We use that supply and demand report. We use the turnover rates. We show them that, you know, what you saw when Dr. Garrett presented her data, it's not a surprise. I mean, unfortunately, This is something we've seen over and over again. So we're having to continue to address it. We have seen some shift in those beginning teacher turnover numbers. So, you know, we saw some improvement. Unfortunately, this year, everything just looks a little bit bleak in all categories, but this is where we are. So we have to just deal with, you know, what we have in front of us. But we walk them through the mentoring cycle and what they as individuals, as veteran teachers, as experts in the field have to do in order to support these beginning teachers so that they can grow and learn to stand on their own 2 feet. The idea really is to build that efficacy so that we're not having to, I don't want to say carry, but we're not having to support the same person for 28 years. So eventually, you know, hopefully after a year of good, solid mentoring, that they're ready to really stand on their own and feel confident and competent in their daily practice.
Right. And I know we can take a look at that. Are you ready for us to take a look at that?
Yeah.
The graphic that sort of guides the training.
Yeah, and this is one of the design materials that I know you were involved with, so you're very familiar with it. But this is what we call our Guide to Professional Success. And this is really a graphic image that just encompasses everything that's involved in mentoring. So if you look at the center there, you see trust. And trust really is the central component to the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. It is something that is an ongoing process. It's not something you don't just build trust and then leave it alone. You continue to build that trust and work on that relationship, because without that trust, that beginning teacher is not going to feel vulnerable enough to share what they really need from the mentor. And so Trust is everything. But I'm going to start up on the left-hand quadrant there, the pre-observation conference. And you'll notice this very much mirrors our evaluation cycle. We have the POP cycle for evaluation, and we want to prepare beginning teachers for that evaluation cycle that's coming up. So we take the same steps, but do it in a different way. So the mentors go in and do a pre-observation conference with the beginning teacher. And in this conference, they're really talking about what to expect in an observation and what the teacher needs, what the beginning teacher needs. A lot of times the beginning teacher might be struggling with, a part of lesson building or a part of instruction, and they're able to articulate that, but sometimes they don't know. They don't even know what they don't know yet. They just know something's not quite perfect yet. And so we give the mentor the tools to help coach that beginning teacher to recognize where that need is. And so that's what that conference is about, is really identifying what the focus of the observation should be. And so then we go over to that next section, observation. The mentor is going to go in and do an observation of the beginning teacher. And this is not a full block observation. This is 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever is needed in order to capture the evidence to address the focus area that they agreed upon. So they're going to be very strategic in when they're going in, how long they're staying, what type of tool they're going to use to record the data. And they're not gathering judgments. They're not evaluating. They're not even forming opinions. They're simply collecting the evidence of what happened or did not happen in that classroom as related to that focus that they agreed to. And so they gather that evidence. They spend some time between the observation and the post-observation conference to really do some digging into that data and looking at, what does it tell us? What can we learn from it? So there's a process of analysis. There's a process of providing feedback before you ever walk into that next conference. But the third step is the post-observation conference. And this is where the mentor is able to present the data to the teacher and provide some effective feedback. And that feedback has to involve setting some goals, because the entire point of mentoring somebody is to help them improve. And so if we're not helping them improve, if we're not setting goals, we're wasting that opportunity. So there's going to be some goal setting in there. There's going to be analysis of data. There's going to be an establishment of what you see in that last section of the circle there, TLOs, teacher learning opportunities. A lot of people equate these to SLOs. There is nothing similar about these two things. A teacher learning opportunity is simply what it is. It is an opportunity for that beginning teacher to learn something new to improve practice. And so it could be something as simple as that teacher needing to read an article about a strategy. It could be needing to see a strategy put in place in a classroom, or it could be working with that mentor on a particular struggle that they're having, maybe around classroom management or questioning or wait time. So the establishment of a TLO, a teacher learning opportunity, and the whole point there is to help facilitate that beginning teacher's growth. You see the yellow ring that surrounds this image says differentiated mentoring. We talk a lot about differentiation when we talk about student learning, but we don't talk about it so much when we talk about teachers. And we're people. Teachers are people. We're all different, and we all start in different places, and we have different strengths and different challenges. And so an effective mentoring relationship is going to take that into account, and that mentor is going to adjust what he or she is doing to meet the needs of the individual that they're working with. And ultimately, as I said, it's to help them build practice. It's to help them build efficacy so that they can stand on their own and be a solid practitioner in education. Let's look at the next slide, if you don't mind, Todd.
Sure.
I wanted to share this with your audience because when we talk about differentiating, I've talked briefly about the fact that beginning teachers have needs, and the needs tend to fall into three categories. And you see that illustrated here. We have social, emotional, physical, and instructional. And so often in any profession, we jump right to kind of the meat of things. And in education, obviously, that would be instruction. So we immediately think, oh, we're here to improve instruction. We've got to address instruction. But if we're not taking care of those other two things, then we can't even begin to deal with instruction. And these can happen in any order. There's no beginning, middle, end. But I'm going to start at the top. I'm just linear, so I'm going to go that direction. Starting at the top, social, emotional. If you think about our beginning teachers, they've taken on this tremendous responsibility. They have been entrusted with the care of 28 or so children. They are supposed to help grow them and mold them and shape them and develop them into these wonderful human beings that are destined to be. That's a lot for a person to do. And that comes with a lot of feelings. Not only that, we've taken this person and put them into a culture that already exists. We have, in many cases, taken them straight from college. This might be their first real job, first time they've been on their own, first time they've navigated paying bills and doing all those type of things that go with being an adult. So there are all these feelings that are going on. And if our teachers aren't okay, how are our students going to be okay? So we've got to address those social emotional needs. And sometimes that just means the mentor needs to listen, just needs to be that person that will be trusted to be a confidant or be a cheerleader, to cheer them on and tell them that they can do this and that they're going to be okay. I distinctly remember a beginning teacher several years ago was in a school, and he came running out of his room and he said, I need an adult. I need an adult, and kind of panicked. And I said, you are the adult. He's like, oh, yeah. And he went back in his room, but he just needed that encouragement. He just needed to be reminded that, it's okay. Whatever's happening in that room is going to be okay. So we've got those social emotional needs. Now I'm going to move over to physical next. When we think about physical, we're really talking about the environment. So if you think about a school building, there are all of these policies and procedures that are already in place. And I can speak from experience. I think you probably would agree that probably half of the procedures don't match what's in writing. You have your handbook, you have how things are supposed to happen, and then you have the daily reality of how things actually function. You also have all of these different individuals through the school who are responsible for different things. So who's over textbooks? Who's over testing? Who's over copies? How do you navigate that building? I can remember just getting lost in the school building that I was in as a beginning teacher, much less finding people. I couldn't find rooms, and I'm like, I don't know where to go for anything. And I knew there was a copier you could touch and a copier you couldn't touch, and you had limited copies on one and unlimited on another, and trying to keep all of that straight. So sometimes that mentor just needs to take the person around the building, or introduce them to people, or give them a little cheat sheet and say, hey, you're having a textbook problem, this is who you go to. But help them understand the building, help them understand all the things that aren't written down, the pep rally, the assemblies, the expectations of what to do in different situations that aren't the norm. Those things might not be written down as they actually occur. And then we have instruction, and you can see that list is so long. There's so much that falls into that category of instructional needs and the roles that the mentor is going to have to fill. And a lot of times we hear from mentors, well, I'm a little nervous about that. I don't know if I'm going to be the best demonstrator, or I don't know if I can diagnose a problem. And we tell them, you don't have to be the expert in everything. What you have to be is willing to be there. And you've got a whole building full of people. So if you're not the expert on whatever your beginning teacher needs, somebody else is, and you can connect them with that. You can be that resource for them. But we can't just jump straight to instruction. So we've got to make sure we're meeting the teacher where the teacher is. And you can see right in the center there's some things that are shared by different categories, but resources shared by all three. That mentor really, if I'd say the number one role of a mentor is to be a resource, not an expert, not, the friend, but a resource, get the person what they need or who they need at the time that they need it. So I think that's just important to keep in mind. I think so often, like you said, in the old days, a mentor was the person you got coffee with, or, you maybe had lunch with, but now it's so much more than that. It's really meeting the needs of that beginning teacher.
Yeah.
So what you see here, I just wanted to share with you kind of why we do this. We know that when we have effective mentoring, and I will say here's one area where South Carolina shines, because about half the states have some form of mentoring or induction required. South Carolina requires both. Beginning teachers must be given induction. They must be given that support in place to help them grow that first year, but they also have to have that trained mentor assigned to them. So we're doing both of these things. And what we have found is that when this is done in a meaningful way, and I'm putting that word meaningful in there because I'm not talking about checking boxes here. I'm talking about doing it truly being a resource for the teacher. We see an increase in retention. These beginning teachers feel more satisfied. They don't feel as alone. They don't feel as isolated. So they're like, you know what, I could actually do this. I could commit to this job and I can come back for year 2. And then I can come back for year 3. We also see an improvement in their teaching. There's certain things, and I'm just going to use classroom management as an example. You can sit in the classroom and hear about classroom management, but until you're in a room with 30 kids, you can't do it. So that's something that's done on site. And that when you have mentoring in place and you have support in place, you see certain aspects of teaching improve when we compare that with teachers who don't have that support in place. And then we also see academic gains by students because, let's face it, we have some rock star first year teachers out there. I don't want to diminish their talent at all, but when we give them that support, it just takes it to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love about the model that CERRA's put together is at the core of that mentoring relationship is trust, and it's about the relationship that you're building. That new teacher or beginning teacher really needs someone that they can trust to help them, guide them through that year. Without that trust and without that close relationship, that process falls apart. And I love the fact that you prioritize that. And then when you look at the roles that a mentor is going to play, and talking about those social emotional roles, that's such a critical piece. I remember mentoring a young teacher, and that was the primary thing that he needed at that time was social emotional support because of something that he was going through. But then you're bouncing around and also seeing that, maybe at times it's those physical needs. It's like you said, just needing to know, how do I write a PO, or like who do I go to if I need these materials, or if I want to take a field trip, what do I do? And then that instructional coaching, which is also such a critical piece, and all of that kind of comes together. And I love that it's a formal training that we're putting mentors through, because otherwise, if it's just a buddy system, if it's just like we're going to match you up with that person, and there's no real thought behind the role that a mentor is going to play and the different things that they need to be aware of, I don't know how effective it is. Mm-hmm. And I also love the fact that you are also, one of the things that I've always loved about CERRA's mentor training is the observations that are done are not this evaluation. So it's not like the police coming in. So that helps maintain and build and maintain that sense of trust, because they know you're not coming in to find out like what they're doing wrong and then tell them, hey, you're not good at this, and here's, you got this low score and we're giving you this really bad evaluation. It's really just about this objective feedback that they need to grow. So it's more of like a coaching thing. It's like what I used to do with my tennis players. It's like we're not slamming you. We're just saying, you're only getting 17% of your first serves in. Let's see if in this match we can get up to 30%. And then you just track it, and then you give them the data, and you say, well, you're still at 17%. So obviously that's something we need to continue to work on. And it's not, there's no judgment, like you said. And so it's a brilliant model.
In fact, Todd, we tell mentors, don't even score. Use the language of the rubric, because obviously those are the expectations for teachers, but never give a score. The beginning teacher might choose to score themselves, but this isn't about evaluation. It's not about judging. It's really just bringing back the data of, hey, you asked me to collect evidence around this area, and here it is. And so let's talk about what your next step is. Let's talk about where we're going to go from here together.
Yeah. So if somebody's watching who wants to become certified to be a mentor in the state of South Carolina, how do they go about doing that? And then also, if someone, I know there's the possibility to not only become a mentor, but to become a mentor trainer. So can you talk about those two, the process to become both of those things?
So if there is a teacher out there who's interested in being a mentor, the first thing to do is to let your principal know. You do have to have your principal's approval and your district coordinator. And typically the principal just tells the coordinator who they want to send to training. So That's the first step. Let them know. You have to have been a teacher for a minimum of a year. I mean, it's a very minimal requirement, but we have to meet everybody's needs across the state. But it's an experienced teacher who is satisfactorily performing at their job, has the recommendation of their administration, and then you can sign up for training. So you do have to go to one of our trainings. You have to have a code, so you have to go through your district. If your district's having a training, it's probably a much simpler process to get into that. Once you are mentor trained, we do have some additional opportunities. So we have already an self-paced advanced mentor training in place for teachers who are supporting international visiting teachers. And so they have that opportunity. We are developing 2 more this year. So we're going to have 2 more come out, hopefully by the end of the year, and 2 more next year. So lots of opportunities for continued growth in that area. But the other thing you mentioned is the mentor trainer. So if you are somebody who's feeling passionate about supporting beginning teachers and really making sure that we're making a difference in retention, and you'd like to conduct these trainings in your district, we highly encourage you to let your principal know. We would love for every district to have a handful of people who are trained trainers so that we can have trainings at district levels, because that's just so much easier for teachers to attend. That also is a 2-day training. You have to have served as a mentor for at least a year and have the recommendation again of your administration. But we highly encourage it. If there's a mentor listening right now who's like, I think I might want to take that step, let your principal know, start that conversation, because we need you. Like I said, everybody's responsible for retention. It's not one person's job. So if you're willing to take that step, it's, I think, something you'd find highly satisfactory.
Yeah. Now I know. Last question is, I know like we've put together resources for. Looks like we lost Suzanne. Well, so hopefully she'll come back. We'll give her a minute. Just to let you know, in the comments we put a link to CERRA's website to their upcoming trainings. You can go to CERRA.org. That's CERRA.org. And if you look up at the top in the navigation, you'll see mentoring as one of the navigation links. And if you hover over that, if you hover over mentoring and induction, you can see that they have upcoming trainings. And if you want to just learn more about the mentoring and induction program that CERRA's put together, you can just do the overview. But the upcoming trainings, you can see that they do have a mentor trainer certification training coming up in person that you can register for. That's going to be December 5th and 6th. So if you're already a certified mentor and you want to become a mentor trainer, you can. So it looks like Suzanne's lost her camera, but that's okay, Suzanne. Well, let's see. Maybe she's coming back. Let's see. Because I did have one other question. One of the things that CERRA's done, I know in the past, is they've helped put together some additional resources for different types of beginning teachers. So one of them is the exchange teacher. So they had some resources if you had first-year teachers that were coming from a different country. Those, we talk about differentiated mentoring and the support. And those teachers coming from another country, whether it's India or Jamaica or wherever they're coming from, need a different type of support, because they're not only learning what it's like to be a first-year teacher in that school, but in this country and in this state of South Carolina. So there may be some specific needs that they have that other teachers don't have. So Suzanne, I see I've brought you back in, but I don't see the camera. And so I'm just going to go ahead and close it out and say thank you for being here tonight, Suzanne. I really appreciate it. Suzanne Koty, if you want to reach out to her, if you have questions about anything she went over, her email is suzanne@cerra.org. So that's suzanne@cerra.org. And just want to thank her for her time. And again, thanks to everybody at CERRA. You can learn all about CERRA at cerra.org. They're the Center for Educator Recruitment, Retention, and Advancement. And what they exist because they're designed to help recruit and retain teachers for public schools in South Carolina. And they do that through a continuum of services, from pro team at the middle school level to teacher cadets at the high school level to teaching fellows, which I believe they're still accepting applications for the teaching fellows program. You can go to teachingfellowsc.com for more information about that. And then mentoring for the beginning teachers. And then they obviously do a lot of work with veteran teachers in supporting teacher leadership through district teacher forums, the Teacher of the Year program that they hold, a 1-year residency, like Jameson's doing a 1-year residency with CERRA this year. And then they also support teachers going through national board, and also support districts who are trying to find people to fill all these vacancies. So they have an online application, an online job bank. They promote the district career fair. So lots and lots of stuff going on at CERRA, and including that supply and demand report. And you can find all about it at CERRA.org. So that's all we have for tonight. I do want to preview coming up on the 1st. If I can find my graphic here, coming up on the 1st, we're going to, Yelena Popovich is a whole school mindfulness director and part of the faculty at Mindful Schools. She and I are going to be talking about mindfulness and school culture. That's going to be this Thursday from 7 to 8 o'clock. I think you'll really enjoy that conversation. We're going to do a deep dive into mindfulness. Yelena and I created the first educator retreat for mindfulness educator retreat in the state of South Carolina back in 2016. And we're going to do a deep dive into what we've learned over these past 6 years about mindfulness and school culture. So I think you guys will probably really enjoy that. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you Thursday night for the next one. I do want to remind you, we would love to connect with you. If you'd like to do that, go to the SCEA.org/connect. It's the SCEA.org/connect. And of course, we would love to have you in our movement. We are building a powerful movement to create change here in South Carolina. We have so much momentum. And if you would like to be a part of it, go to jointhescea.org, or you can text the word join to 48744. Again, that's jointhescea.org, or text the word join to 48744. Thanks again for tuning in tonight. Thanks again to Dr. Suzanne Koty for her time. And we will see you hopefully Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Take care.